folks. Welcome everybody here tonight, and just want to say I do appreciate you coming out and being with us. And it's the community behind the YouTube that's the most important. Y'all's what make these streams what they are, whether it's Bob and Lee's channel or Charlie's channel or Tim and Hannah. You guys are what makes the channels what they are. It's not the people that's on here speaking. So I do appreciate you tonight. Spanky, how's your week been?
It's been okay. It's had its ups and downs.
Well, you enjoying this cold weather?
Do what?
Are you enjoying the cold weather?
Well, I mean, I'm waiting for it to snow. They've been telling me over and over it's going to snow.
You just need to come up on the mountain. You're just too far off the mountain down there in Lenore. You need to go ahead and come up here and just bite the bullet and enjoy the snow. So
I don't know about that.
So, Lee, how's your week been, man? How's the weather down that way?
We had a couple of cold nights. I left work yesterday morning. It was 18 degrees here, and we're not used to that in South Louisiana.
Right.
Now, Tuesday, we had rain come in Monday night in a freeze, so they shut work down Tuesday because of the roads.
So what's the temperatures? What are the low temperatures down there? Is this like really cold for you guys, or does this happen about every year for you guys?
I'm at 57 right now, and I believe we was mid 60s today, somewhere around there.
Okay.
But usually, our coldest time of the year, I would say, would be the last week or so of January, the first week of February. And we've been known to hit the teens a couple of times, but usually we right around 30. It's not too bad here.
Okay.
Yeah, we were mid 60s today.
Cool. It's like somebody watching from Ohio. So, well, the reason we did an extra stream tonight was to get James Wilkes here. Now, I've known James for about 4 or 5 years now, James.
Yeah, something like that.
Something like that. He met him at our Ashe County Bee Association and started talking to him. And it's amazing how a small world of inventors, people creating stuff, are kind of connected here in Ashe County. I mean, James has the same feeling I do. But we're blessed to have a very good county there's not a lot of violence. It's just laid back, just good people. But then we got really good educators like James and Jim Rash, and so many people at our Bee Association. It makes a very good, tight community. And it's nice to get James out here with us. And so, James, how was your drive over?
It was okay until your driveway. I didn't quite make it up the driveway, but I managed to turn around, and that was the other night. That was not tonight. So, but yeah, no, we finally got a good snow. I'm very happy, Rick, to see the good snow for a change, and it's been a while.
It's been a while. Yeah, we had a good snow. I think we had about 7 inches here at the house. We kind of went to a drizzle. You probably got 4 or 5 inches, 6 inches of
at least. Yeah.
Yeah, I know some of the higher elevations. Like Mom and Dad, they hit a foot of snow.
Okay.
So some of the mountaintops really got a lot of snow. So Spanky, come on up the mountain, man. Stop being bashful.
And you don't have to come very far. I was over there next to Blowing Rock. You just come right up to the edge, and you'll see the snow.
You just see the snow, man.
No, I can see it on the internet.
That's how I feel.
I think we're supposed to get some snow tonight, right?
Yeah, I think it's another few inches, and then super cold again.
Yeah,
I was 0 over in my little valley this morning. 1 degree yesterday, 0 this morning.
Yeah.
So
yeah, it's kind of interesting watching the, thinking, well, my bee's gonna make it. When it gets to those low temperatures like that. So
I figure it's just a good stress test for the weak ones.
There you go. They're gonna make it. They're not, right? So,
yeah.
I hope all mine make it, because, man, it's a lot of work. Making new queens and new colonies and doing all that work. So.
Yeah, we move a lot of ours off the mountain. We call it off the mountain here.
Yeah.
Like to to Lenore.
Yeah, down to Lenore, down there where Spanky's at, where it's warm. Yeah.
But we still got a few at the house that haven't been moved yet, so they're probably wishing they were off the mountain right now.
Yeah, yeah, you better believe it. So you got some of your bees in Wilkesboro too, right? Again, that's off the mountain.
Yeah, we overwinter actually in
Statesville, North Carolina. Okay, yeah. So he really gets them downstate to where, their lows probably like 30s. I mean,
it's kind of like Lenore, and yeah, they'll be. They're about 6 weeks ahead of us up here. So for my son's bee business, that the head start on the season down there is a good thing for growing bees and making nukes. And
that's something we're going to talk about tonight. It's how y'all move your bees around on some sourwood and stuff. But let's go into let's talk a little bit about your dad, who kind of got you into beekeeping, and plus some of your history into beekeeping.
Sure.
So if you'll talk to our viewers a little bit about that.
Okay. Yeah. And nice to meet you all out there to be on Rick's show here. And I got into beekeeping actually myself, having bees in the year 2000. And the first 2 hives I had came from my dad. He was retired at that time. He was a school teacher. That's him right there. And he passed last year, so I really miss him.
Right. Yep.
And when I was born in 1965, so you can age me from that. And my dad had bees when I was born. He had bees in our yard. He got his first packages from Sears and Roebuck in 1964. I have no idea why. He and his friend decided they wanted to do beekeeping. This was in the Piedmont area of North Carolina. So if any of you out there in the Eden, North Carolina, where I was born, actually born in Leakesville, then it turned into Eden. Some history there if you want to go explore that, but just north of Greensboro in that area. Right. And it's most of North Carolina is pretty good beekeeping area.
100%. Yeah, it is. It's great beekeeping.
So actually, I grew up with bees in the backyard. They were just part of the landscape. And back then, I guess you just put some boxes on in the spring, and sometime in the summer you pulled some honey off. And I remember a big dish pan and him cutting the big chunks of honey out and stuffing it in a jar. I don't think I've tasted any honey that maybe it's nostalgia or emotion or something, but that when I get that flavor that what he had, there's probably a lot of clover in it.
But that's like me when I first tasted honey. Right, we was riding our bicycles down the road to do fishing and stuff, and a beekeeper said, "Hey man, come over and try this." And you get it right out of the hive, and it's like, this is just amazing, but you just don't seem to ever get that flavor.
Yeah, it's. I think it's
the childhood
memory.
I
took a honey tasting class from Marina,
the
Honey Tasting Society lady, and flavors and taste are very much attached to memories. So anyway, that's
interesting. That's very interesting.
When you taste memories, you have memories associated with them. So anyway, so grew up with bees. Didn't have my own until 24 years ago. It was about the time I had first kids were growing, and we were looking for things to do for them to do and to be involved with. And I thought, I'll start keeping bees.
Right. It's a farm, right?
Yeah. Well, I didn't move to the farm until 5 years later.
Okay.
All right. So in 2005, I moved actually just up the road here from Rick, and didn't realize he was actually this close to me until
just the other day.
This week. And so when I moved there, I had 2 or 3 hives, and then this was a nice farm property, and we were kind of trying to do the farm thing. It's the end thing now, your chickens and your bees, right?
Yep.
I was doing this in 2005 when we were talking about Joel Salatin.
Yep.
When he first started talking about his stuff, I was kind of right in there with that. And so the bees just grew with my family and the farm. And pretty soon, as most of you who keep bees know, once you have a few hives and they're healthy,
it just continues to grow.
You can't keep them down. They will grow whether you like it or not. And so we started sort of a farmer's market business, which then created a market for honey. So that gave more reason to increase the bees. And so I went to, I think, about 40 hives for 2 or 3 years. And then 2010, I doubled that to about 100 hives.
Right.
and then ran that for about 5 or 6 years. And then my son took over. We spun that out as his own business. He's running that now. He's got 150, 175 somewhere in there.
Right.
So
yeah,
there you go.
There you go.
There's my beekeeping history.
Yeah. So you've
for pieces of it.
Yeah. So it's great to start with your, both my grandfathers had bees. Great grandfathers had bees, and I can remember a little bit about them and that, and then where you start at. You have that in your mind, and I never expected to have bees later in life, right?
Same
and then all of a sudden you're into beekeeping, and you've gone down that rabbit hole, and here we all are, right?
Yeah.
So,
and I did learn actually within the last year of my dad's life.
Mm-hmm.
He was talking about his dad would help his uncle. His uncle had bees.
Oh wow!
So there was a connection even
further
back than him.
Wow.
That must have been where he got his idea.
Yeah, and I'm sure that's like our viewers on here. What got you started into beekeeping? Was it somebody in your past that got you started? Or was it just you decided you wanted to have them? Most of the time, it's something in the past, or you've run across a beekeeper that's clicked in your mind. Hey, I think I might want to have some bees.
Yeah,
and that's how it gets you started. So
yeah.
So speaking of your history, and something that I really like to know a lot about is, and something that I tried last year, is chasing sourwood.
Okay.
So if you'll go into that, I'm going to pick your brain tonight, and I want to know a lot. Now, he does single brood management on that, correct?
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah. So that's something like I mentioned on the stream last night, that I'm totally against single brood management. But after this year and seeing how well it works and how all the beekeepers do it, you say, okay, Rick, that's why we all need to have our minds opened up just a little bit, right? That might not work for everybody, but for honey production, it's a very good way to do that. So go ahead with your sourwood and tell us about you chasing sourwood.
Sure. But before we go there, but that, what's your objective with your beekeeping? How you want to keep bees? I mean, a lot of that's going to drive how you manage, whether you do single, 1.5 or 2 or whatever,
right,
and your location right there. So there's a lot that goes into it.
Yeah.
And just because one person's doing it doesn't mean that will fit
for you
the way you do
right.
it.
But I've never gotten so much honey. This year, I have never got so much honey, and I did the single brood management, and it worked great. It worked great on the sourwood. So, but yeah. But you're right. It's all about how you manage your bees, right?
Yeah. All right. So for sourwood, I again moved to this location in the mountains of North Carolina. It's the northwest corner. I don't know if Rick's shown you on the map, but if you look at the map of North Carolina, right up in that corner, that's where we are. And it turns out that right here at our location, we don't make sourwood.
No, we don't get sourwood out here.
In fact, about the same time that sourwood is happening, basswood is happening
it's
here,
huge.
or our summer flow, which is mostly basswood.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I moved to the farm over here, I was just getting the honey that we made here, but just down the road from me was the local beekeeper for this area. He kept about 50 hives, 75 hives, somewhere in there. Glenn Wood was his name. And of course, because I moved in and started ramping up my bee business, I got to know him.
Mm-hmm.
And it turns out that he made sourwood honey, and he had been making it since the 1950s.
That's amazing.
And when I saw what he was doing, I kind of tagged along, one, just because he was a very experienced beekeeper.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to learn. It was amazing hanging out in the bee
Sure,
yard with
that much
person
experience,
like that.
right? Yeah, 100%.
And he had some very funny sayings, like meaner than a striped snake, and some others that I probably can't repeat on YouTube. But anyway, and so he would move his bees for sourwood from up here.
Right.
And it turns out that he had bought 2 pieces of property just on the edge of the mountains
where all the sourwood
where the sourwood is. So I started tracking along with him.
Mm-hmm.
He was kind of drawing down his bee business.
Mm-hmm.
I was ramping mine up, so he let me share even equipment, bee yards, that sort of thing. So I learned the sourwood chasing. and the process from him.
Yeah.
And he had been doing it 50 years. So I said, I don't know anything. I'm going to learn everything from him.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's how I kind of got into trying that. I just wanted to try it out and see.
Mm-hmm.
And so I knew where at least some good locations were, and knew the process of when you need to move into it, and that's the big thing with sourwood.
Sure.
It's all a timing thing.
Mhm.
And for the sourwood tree, you see the bloom right there.
Yeah.
It blooms in a very sort of distinct window,
Mhm.
and in the forest where the sourwoods are, there's very little else blooming at that time. And
Yep.
so people always say, well, how can you tell the bees just to go to sourwood? Well, you can't. But if
the flow's heavy.
when a bee leaves a hive, and if the only bloom that it hits is a sourwood bloom,
It's going to be
sourwood, right? So that's what you kind of want to set up the circumstance.
I think North Carolina said, was it 51% has to be sourwood? Is that correct?
Yeah, but
We're 55.
If
We're
you want
almost 100% sure we're getting right.
right, and if you want to, that's a whole nother conversation.
Okay, that's
how we decide whether it's 50% or not.
Okay, all right.
But if you've been making sourwood in a particular place for 50 years, who's going to tell you you're not making sourwood?
Right.
I mean,
The flavor itself kind of,
and it's the flavor that defines it, really.
Sure. You've been doing it that long, you got to know what it tastes like.
Yeah, and other people verified that it is. So, so anyway, I just started developing the flow, knowing when to move bees into these locations, when to pull them out. And as far as management on that, as you would expect, when you go into those yards, you clean off any, or if you want just straight sourwood, take all the honey supers off, put clean ones on right when the bloom starts.
Yeah.
And then you pull them off even before you want to go right before the flow ends.
Right. But the hive has to be set up right, because I can't take a nuke, put it on sourwood, thinking that it's going to grow and then collect sourwood. That hive has to be set up correct, right?
Your foragers were, that are going to be collecting the sourwood were, in this case, we move at the end of June. So end of May is when they hatched out. So it's the last 2 weeks of their life, more or less.
Okay.
So that brood that's coming out at the end of May, that's who's going to be your foragers in the sourwood.
Okay.
So there's management to aim towards that sourwood.
Because I had one hive I felt like was too strong. I put it on the sourwood and it blew out.
Yeah.
And swarmed on me. And then I got nothing out of that hive. I got a little bit of sourwood, but not what I could have got. So it's like, okay, well, should have I managed that hive and made it a little weaker, right? So that it would have been stronger when it got there, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And that's one thing that kind of single brood management kind of doesn't let your hive can't get too big.
Okay.
Right. Because if it does, it's swarmed and you're done. So that's just kind of the general sourwood flow. But for our operation, for my son's operation, and the way we ran, I did it, before he took over, because we start off the mountain. We we get a spring in off the mountain
in Statesville.
So you're
probably getting poplar there on there, right?
So we get poplar, privet, holly,
you're getting all that good stuff.
Black locust,
and we still ain't getting anything up here yet.
And the maples are blooming.
Okay,
up here.
Okay,
that's it. That's the difference in the seasons.
And then so you're chasing that up and that way, right?
So we start down there.
Okay.
He does lots of splits, sells nukes, grows bees out, all the time, pushing everybody back down to a single brood. Okay. That's why that works.
Right.
We'll double them up in, say, February, and let them grow into a double or even a triple deep. But then when we split them, we just break them completely apart. You end up with a 5-frame mother colony.
Okay.
Everything else goes off into nukes.
Okay.
So
cool.
That's how that. And then we move up here, get the spring up here in May.
Yep.
And then about the time ours is done, they're ready to go into sourwood.
So you're getting honey, and then honey again.
Yeah.
Daggone, that's sweet. And then overwintering in a warmer area.
Yeah.
Gosh, that's
and a fall honey maybe, right?
Right. Yeah.
But also up here, temps are cool enough in August that you can do formic.
So you can treat up here
coming out of sourwood.
Wow, that's really cool.
It's a really nice setup for that business, for my son's business model.
Sure.
In terms of the honey production, even selling nukes and honey production, which is kind of sometimes you have to choose between those. He doesn't have to necessarily.
Right.
But anyway, so that's more than just sourwood. Sourwood is in that flow
Right.
of the season.
Right, but I appreciate you talking about how you're moving your bees around, because that's something I really want to try to do, is kind of move my bees around a little bit more. And
it's the worst part.
Oh, really? Now listen, he tells me that. Come on, man.
Okay, imagine this.
Okay.
It's the end of June, and it's humid.
Okay,
and you've got a busting hive that you have to squish down
into a little box.
Into either a single, or we generally have to do a 1.5 just to keep the bees in.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have to get them all to go back in enough so that you can pick them up and move them. It is not a fun time.
Oh, I got you. I understand that. But we're not super hot up here, at least.
No, but it's still
warm.
Relative.
And the bees are not happy.
No, they're coming off the flow and they're all ready to go.
Yeah.
And then you're squishing them down into smaller.
And
we get a pretty good dearth right in that.
Sure do, actually.
Like that second week of June.
That's right, we do.
Third week of June.
There ain't nothing there hardly at all.
And they're not very happy.
If there's anything, if we had some rain, clover might be, but that would be about it, right? So that's really cool. Thank you, James. I appreciate that.
Sure.
And that's going to help me, myself, when I try to do some sourwood chasing. So I did find a really cool spot that's even higher in elevation than I am here. So, if I can start off the mountain, then maybe on top of the mountain, then maybe get there, I might, who knows, I may be able to get 3 off of it. We'll see how that
works. I've thought of that, kind of playing the elevation game with the sourwood itself. And I don't know, I haven't got it to work real well.
You haven't got it to work yet? Okay.
Sometimes it works in one place and not the other, and you spend a lot of energy moving.
Right.
I mean, moving is a big energy sink.
That's like this year, I think I seen that, was it Wilkesboro was ahead of Lenore or vice versa? One was, sourwood was on. And these areas are both basically the same elevation, but one came in a little earlier.
And even like this one place going down 16, depending on kind of the spring warmth and bloom and stuff, sometimes it can get inverted.
Oh, really?
The higher goes before the lower, which totally messes up any of that.
Oh yeah, that would definitely mess me up for sure.
So you really kind of just aim for the one that you're that works for you.
And I think something really cool that you do with your bees is use scales.
Oh yeah, we should talk about that.
Yeah, let's talk about the scales on the sourwood. Yeah, Lee'll probably bring a picture up here for us, but yeah, I think it's really cool because for the bee association, you will post these scales showing the flow and showing how fast it's moving. And for me, that's really cool because, hey, Rick knows that his supers are getting honey on, right? And I love it. I love those scales. Yeah. So talk to us a bit about that.
Sure. Maybe we'll back up a little bit and why I'm interested in scales. So part of my background is my day job is a computer science professor at Appalachian State. Right. So I'm very interested in technology, been interested in that, created Hive Tracks, kind of software, and the scales are kind of the other side of that coin on the technology of sensors and that sort of thing. So I've been kind of tracking with and following, technology development in the beekeeping space since 08, 09. And when the scales came out, I was like, I gotta have one of those. And then this one is from Solution Bee, which is a North Carolina-based company. I kind of watched them be developed and created. And then when I put them in sourwood and what it was telling me as a beekeeper for my management, the timing, I have scale graphs like this for at least 10 years. Okay. So, and you can see, and they're always like this. I mean, it never fails in terms of what the profile, what the graph looks like. I mean, it might be, shifted one way or the other a little bit, but it looks like that in general. So, when the flow starts, and, within, it's like almost within 4 or 5 days. Except this past year. It's always an exception.
That's always an exception. It all depends, as Jim Rash says. It all depends.
But anyway, back to the scales. This I've very much enjoyed kind of seeing the scales. It gives you a lot of interesting insight into what's going on in your hive, kind of how big of a flow can you get, how much honey or nectar comes in a single day, what happens at night, which is fascinating.
You see it kind of drop back down a little bit
when they're drying the honey out. They're venting moisture out of the hive overnight, and so the weight trickles down overnight, and then it bumps back up, and then it trickles down. So you're going to have a net plus, but it's going to go down a little bit every night. So like this graph says LDG, that's the name of the yard. That's the lower deep gap.
Okay.
514 is the number of the scale, and plus 54 just says that's the net plus
that it's
over that window.
Yeah.
And that looks like it's
2 or 3 weeks.
2 or 3 weeks. Yeah. Each peak in there is 1 day.
Okay.
It is how you
Okay. You can see
the waveform is like each day is like this peak and then drop, peak and drop. It's like a sawtooth.
Okay.
Right.
Cool. That's really cool.
So like you said, I started posting my scale readings to the Facebook groups and the bee clubs and stuff like that. Just as an interesting thing.
I'm always wondering, hey James, man, is the basswood started yet?
Right.
You know,
right.
Can you, because you have some scales on the basswood
here
so,
as well.
Yeah, no, so that helps me.
And I really want a network of these. I mean, and there's been projects like that in North Carolina to kind of have these and kind of a community scale,
right?
So that everybody could go see it, and the beekeeping community would know, hey, like you're asking me, is the basswood flowing yet?
Right.
Maybe we could just go to a spot and see that.
Yeah. So I love the scale. I think that's really cool. I'd like to have one myself. So yeah. All right. So your honey. You sell honey also. You sell the sourwood honey also, right? And it's beautiful. I've seen it. I've seen it in the jars. It turns out great. I think right there you got some common honey. There with it.
We don't do many of those, but that's a rare sight.
But I love being able to see in that and see the comb honey in there, and that's really pretty. Yeah, that's some gorgeous honey. Sourwood has got a really pretty color to it.
Yeah, sourwood, like any varietal, kind of has kind of a color that people expect,
right,
for it. But at the same time, it's a lighter honey, so it can get things in it pretty easily that will will darken it or change the color a little bit. But at least for where we make it, it's I call it a dusty brown color.
Yeah,
it doesn't have the reddish in it much. If it does, then I know something else is getting in it. But if it's the light dusty brown, when we first harvest it, that's what it looks like. Now sourwood darkens over time.
Does it really?
Absolutely.
I did not know that.
Within a year, that same jar is going to be darker.
Wow. Okay.
At my office at work, I've set aside a jar every year since 2008 or 2009. I have a jar for each year of the sourwood.
That's cool.
And so you can see that they're darker, and not a single one is crystallized.
I was going to ask about that because I don't think sourwood doesn't really crystallize.
It doesn't. It just doesn't crystallize.
Yeah.
I set a jar on my porch a year and a half ago, and I forgot about it, and then so it turned into an experiment
to see if it would.
And so it's been sitting out in all manner of weather, and it's just as clear and beautiful as that's the day I put it in there.
Yeah, and I had I had hives on some sourwood. It had some super clear honey. I'm like, there's no way this is sourwood. It was just too clear. I mean, it's the clearest honey that I'd ever seen. I brought it to James. I'm like, can you try this? Tell me, is this sourwood? And you're like, yeah, that's sourwood. I'm like, but it's too clear. I mean, it was really clear, not that pretty dusty colors you're talking about, right? It was just super.
So clear. I have found, and this is, I haven't done a close enough experiment to know for sure, but so I sell at farmers market. So sometimes when sourwood's coming in, I'm sold out of everything from the previous season. So I want to get new sourwood into the market as quickly as possible. So I'm pulling like the very first tap off.
Yep.
And I'm pretty sure, again, I haven't verified it, but the early part of the flow is lighter and clearer than the later. Yeah. I'm not sure if it's something about the nectar, where it is in the flowers or whatever, but I've kind of found that to be true.
Some clear.
And I do know from some other areas in the mountains of North Carolina, and even a friend has some in Cumberland Gap or Cumberland Plateau area of Tennessee, has some sourwood that has a little bit darker. It's getting something else, but its flavor is sourwood. Yeah, and
I had some hives down there where Spanky was at in Lenore. And that's where we started, was kind of in Lenore. Yeah. And that sourwood was darker. It's a lot darker. It's darker than what we just showed up there. It has a different look to it. Yeah. But you could still taste the flavor was still sourwood, right? It may be mixed with something else, but mostly sourwood's what.
Yeah, and that's, like I said, if the better spots are ones where nothing else can bloom, right? We're starting to get some stuff coming in that's making me nervous.
Oh, okay.
Like Japanese knotweed. I'm seeing some patches of that in different places,
Right.
Which it kind of blooms all the time.
Yes, it does. It does.
From midsummer on, it just keeps on. I mean, you
Yeah.
mow it down, it comes back, blooms again within
Yeah.
a very short window of time.
Yeah.
And then mimosa is coming on,
Oh, we
and
got
then
Jose on here tonight. That's pretty cool.
and then there's something. The Chinese chestnut.
Oh yeah.
That there's a good number of those around.
Yeah.
And it usually doesn't get into honey that
Right.
much, but
I did see that those Chinese chestnuts bloom the same time sourwood did this
they
year.
do. Yeah, they did, and I think actually we made some up here.
Oh, really?
I've tasted some.
How's the flavor good?
I don't like chestnut honey.
Okay.
It tasted like chestnut honey. Which
Okay.
I don't like the flavor of it. It has a bitter sort of note to it.
Okay.
But people were like, it happened when basswood should have been
Right.
in some places.
That's right.
And somebody said, taste this, and I was like, that's not basswood.
No, basswood's
In
got
fact,
a
that tastes
flavor.
like chestnut, and I've not seen a lot of chestnut up here, even though we have a good number of
More
those trees.
chestnuts. Yeah.
So,
Cool. All right.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool. All right. So, speaking of Hive Tracks, you've talked about it some already. So, if you don't mind, for our viewers out there, talk to us a little bit about your Hive Tracks and how you've been developing it. And, I think at the expo, maybe you had opened it up to be free or something like that.
Yeah.
So, just
Yeah.
kind of go through that just a little bit to our audience tonight.
Sure. Yeah. So Hive Tracks is it's software for beekeepers.
Mhm.
Okay. I started it in 2008, 2009. I was in my bee yard
Mm-hmm.
just up the road. I was standing at my hive,
Uh-huh.
trying to remember what I did the last time I was there.
Uh-huh. Like, oh.
Anybody ever done that?
Yeah, a lot.
Right.
A lot.
And then you go in the hive and you're like, oh yeah, I should have checked the queen here like last week.
Yeah.
So I had this aha moment.
Uh-huh.
2008. These were
Getting hot. Yeah.
brand new.
Yeah.
I mean, and I thought to myself, I've got this device in my pocket. It
Mhm.
ought to give me an assist.
Right.
Just give me some help in making decisions about my
Mhm.
bees. It should tell me something. I mean, I already had this vision. I was like, I want to walk up to this hive
Mm-hmm.
and my phone say, you're at hive XYZ. This is what happened last time. This is what you should be looking at. Blah, blah, blah. This is
Mhm.
what's going on in your neighborhood. This is what the time of the season is. Again, just to have some information
Mhm.
as I'm inspecting my hive or doing whatever I'm doing
Mm-hmm.
to give me some help.
Right.
And to collect that information, the records and things. I mean, we teach in the classes, keep good records.
Well,
Very few people keep good records.
I don't keep good records. I'm sorry, James.
And we have, I'm right there with you.
Okay,
I'm not,
all right,
I'm
all
not
right.
claiming to be. That's partly why
That's
I
it.
created this.
Yeah. Okay.
And so that was also the same time that I was growing. I was probably at 40 hives or more. And so again, there's no way to keep up with that information.
Mhm.
And I thought, hey, let's build this thing.
Yeah.
I had a good friend, or actually, no, he wasn't a good friend at the time. He became a friend.
Mhm.
But this guy who lived in Boone, he was in the Watauga Beekeeping Club. He was a new beekeeper, and he was a professional software developer.
Mhm.
And he had a similar idea.
Okay.
We got together. We released the first version of Hive Tracks
Mhm.
at the Eastern Apiculture Society meeting in Boone
Mhm.
in 2010.
Okay.
A lot of things converged to make that. It just happened to be in Boone,
Yeah.
EAS, and it lined up with when we were releasing it. And that first version was a web application. So it wasn't my dream of a mobile app. Actually, I don't know if you remember, but there weren't many mobile apps
No.
back then. It was mostly web applications. So we started as a web application, but that same vision that I had then, that the technology can give us an assist, help connect us as beekeepers. That's the other thing. Kind of like the scales, being able to show that information, improving the knowledge of what's going on in the beekeeping world around us, is what I was after. Okay, so so from that moment on, after we released, then it went through multiple iterations of different technologies, different business models. Even we've kind of come full circle. The original was completely free for everybody because this was really a side gig. We're not charging anybody. You get what you pay for.
Right.
Type thing. But that first version spread around the world just by the power of the internet. What all of you all are doing
with
now
YouTube
in spades. But even then, it just proved that this just kind of, I didn't market it. I didn't. And so over the years of that first version, I spread to 150 plus countries.
Wow. That's amazing.
And so that's almost all the countries in the world. I don't know how many, there's maybe 190 or something. I don't know the right number now, but it just spread around. And it's like, wow, this is cool. Right. And then it's like, well, how are we going to support this? Right. We need some sort of business model. The software as a service, subscription model, you know, we went there to do that. And that supported it. And again, we built the web application and we built mobile apps. And then all that technology started getting a little bit dated, and it costs a lot of money to build new technology. And so we were kind of at this point, and we in about the year 2020, right before pandemic, we did the whole business model or the organization of Hive Tracks. We're more of a startup, like a tech startup type.
Right.
And we're in the investment, equity investment funding model now. And all that to say that it's allowed us to rebuild the whole tech stack. And now the application is free on the mobile app. We have a web application that's coming out in about 3 weeks, 2-3 weeks, something like that. And
I'm grabbing the phone. Go ahead.
All right. And so that the paywall is going to move to that web application. So any of you out there right now, if you want to try out the app, it's totally free. No anything. No cost, no credit card. Just put your name in, sign up, set it up, and love to get your feedback on it. We've redesigned the whole thing, and this is designed specifically for small scale hobbyist beekeepers. And we've got versions for commercial beekeepers. Those are going to be kind of redone, but it's been great fun getting to know the commercial beekeeping space as well. I don't know if you've not seen beekeeping in Canada before, with how, they get like 8 or 10 deeps.
Oh yeah.
High.
Yeah. They get huge.
In fact, the scale, the Solution Bee scale guide made a special scale for those guys. So there's the website, and again, you can go to the Play Store, download the app. Again, I don't want to sell, but it's free.
We're not here to sell,
but it's free, so it's not sell. It's just try it out. And
so when you have that app, are you talking to it, or are you typing in your data?
So there's some typing in. There's a lot of selecting. Just swiping, selecting. If you have to type text, you can hit the microphone and speak to it. It's not voice driven. And there's been a lot of work that's kind of been done to try to do that, even in the beekeeping space. There was a startup out of Greece that tried that, and then they ran out of money. But people always want that. And it's a good thing. Because you have sticky
hands and
and I will. So that's a good point. So I've been using my phone in my bee yard for 16 years. And it's still pretty clean. It's still pretty that's an obvious kind of question.
Sure.
And it is something you have to think about. And if you're using gloves, then you can't. But you can do a stylus or something like that.
Oh, okay.
Or
I didn't think about that.
You can just wait until you get out of the hive and then record the data for it. Okay. And part of that depends on what you're doing.
Right.
If you're just feeding, or if you're treating for varroa or something like that, you want to record that, right? So in this case, it's just, okay, we fed the hives. Then so you would just go and hit a couple of buttons that say I fed the hives. And then you've captured that record for that hive for that date. So it's where the information that it stores is where your hive's located. Okay. How many hives do you have? What did you do with those hives? When was the last time you touched those hives or looked at them? And what did you do?
Okay, cool.
That's the basic information.
Ron says, does it integrate with brood minder scales, or was that something different?
So it's not integrated with brood minder scales or any of the other IoT devices that are out there. I've had plenty of discussions with all the founders and creators of those, but we've never gotten to the point of full integration. The way I do it is I take a screenshot of the scale and just add that into my app as part of the record, which that's a good point I want to jump off on. The camera on your phone, they're phenomenal. You should, whether you use Hive Tracks or any other app or whatever, you should take pictures.
Right.
And have those part of your record keeping.
Right.
I mean, if nothing else, the pictures say a whole lot.
Yeah. And there's one app that you can actually take a picture and it'll show you the mites count on it, right? And again, that's another process of, okay, it's an app, it's something that's working right, but you know, use it. Don't say that, hey, I got a picture, I didn't get no mites, right? You still need to do mite checks and stuff, even though that's telling you not to, right?
Yeah, that particular app, if that's the one that I think you're thinking of, is they've done a lot of good work.
Yeah.
And have made a lot of progress, but it's another one that's kind of, they're spending a lot of money to build that and figured out, you know, how to make that sustainable.
So all I'm saying is every app that's out there, there's things that
there's something that it does,
right,
and you should incorporate that into your management.
Correct.
Not look to it for the source of truth, but it's going to help you make decisions. That's really how I want Hive Tracks.
Yeah.
Is give you the information to make better management decisions. You still have to be the beekeeper.
Sure.
You still have to make decisions, but the more information, the better information you have, the better decisions you're going to make.
Yeah,
so that's my goal with the app. And one of the things we've worked really hard on, and this is good for, well, actually for any of us, but for beginners in particular, like if you're doing an inspection, you know, what do I look for?
Yeah.
Right. What data should I collect? What observations do I make?
Yeah.
And so we have a real clear guide on how to do that, which is based on a survey of kind of all the inspection records that people have done across the world.
Right.
What are the most important data points that you need to record, and gives you some real quick ways through that, or more detailed, or for more help. So you can kind of, whatever your level is, like if so you do an inspection, you say food stores are good, population's good, queen status is good, there's no stressors visible, good, I'm done.
Right.
So it could be as simple as that. Or you get to queen and you go, wait, something's going on here with the queen.
Right.
What did I see? Did I see the queen? Did I see eggs? Did I see open larvae? Did I see cat brood?
Spotty brood, whatever.
And so then you record detail, so that then you can decide, is this something that I need to do?
Right.
Do I need to intervene somehow? Right. And that's what you want to do. You want to decide, do I need to do something about this? Right.
Okay, cool.
So
that's awesome. Well, I appreciate that.
So that's kind of the app itself is kind of that record keeping piece. The bigger part of it for me beyond that is there's a community aspect. So again, if we're all using the app and kind of recording, like with that scale example of knowing what's going on in your neighborhood, we have a component called community intelligence or whatever that you can say, when you log in, it'll say, 10 people in your area treated for varroa, or 10 people, added honey supers or whatever. So it's kind of that, some of that information that you get from your Facebook group, or your beekeeping meetings, or you just calling up your buddy and say, hey, has the basswood started yet? Right. But kind of creating an environment where that can happen.
That's awesome.
Through the app.
Cool.
And then one other cool thing that's coming out, which we introduced at the Bee Expo, is something that we call the honey story. Okay. So this is the beginning of honey authentication. I'm very driven to come up with a way. You were saying, how do I know that there's 50%? I'm very interested in that question, right? Because I make sourwood honey, and you can go down to the store down the street here,
and it'll say sourwood
and
honey.
it has some sourwood, but it's not sourwood.
That's right.
So I have a personal interest in authenticating honey,
right?
And I think we can with data. So when, as a beekeeper, when you produce your honey, you know where you produced it, when you produced it. So anything within that 2 to 3 mile radius that was blooming is the candidate for the
that
nectar
honey.
for that honey. Right?
Sure.
So you know kind of the category that it might be, and then over with experience, you know flavor profiles, you know colors, you know what people get in that area. So then you can begin to say what flavor honey it is, what's the flavor profile, or what actual honey nectar is in there.
Okay.
And so the app actually knows where your bees were and when you produced it.
Right.
And that data becomes part of the story of the honey that you harvest.
And that's cool because that's, you know, you have people all the time say, well, what kind of honey is it? Well, I know definitively this right here was blooming, right? Or this was going on
right.
That time.
And so in the app, when you do a honey harvest, because that's one of the records. So if you do a honey harvest, then we will create a honey story for that honey and give you a QR code that you can then put on your honey so that when your consumers go to it, it takes to a page for your honey that says, and you get to fill in some of the details.
Cool.
But it's also got the data from the app.
That's really cool.
So that's a new feature that's coming soon on the web app.
So that's really awesome.
I like that. There's all sorts of other interesting things.
Well, you know what would be really cool is for y'all, you high-tech creators to get all of it into one big central app and then, you know, for us backyard beekeepers, we'd have it made.
Good luck. I've tried that.
I'm sure you have.
Yeah, there's some more stories behind that.
So there's some creator division, it sounds like here.
Well, no, what happens is if you're creating something, then you're nose down on your creation.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah.
So I'm nose down on my creation, you're nose down on your creation, the next one next. So when do we ever look up to see who's beside us?
I guess that's what you said.
Not for a long time.
Right.
But there has been work done to try to actually standardize data. Really what has to happen for the cross-platform things to happen.
It's like metrics and standard, right? Let's get all together on one or the other so we're all linked up the right way.
And I went to Epamondia in Istanbul, Turkey in 2017. And we started a bee data standardization working group.
Wow.
At Epamondia. And it's been super slow and hard to get that. I mean, creating the standard is tedious and not very gratifying work.
Yeah.
But anyway, all to say that people have thought about it, worked on it.
Yeah.
And this is a very, emerging market.
Sure.
The technology is maturing and it'll eventually get there.
Yeah. But the thing that excites me, before we get to Steve's question here, is that beekeeping's been done for thousands of years, right?
Yeah.
But it's kind of always recreating itself in a way. You know, you have new ideas. You have backyard beekeepers. Me and you who are up here in the middle of nowhere, right?
Yeah.
I'm building horizontal hubs. You're creating an app. You know, we're backyard guys, right? But we're contributing to beekeeping, right?
Yeah, this is the growth of knowledge and understanding, and that's the beauty of being human and
it's like
being
to me,
beekeeping.
It's like people in backyard beekeeping say, they're keeping bees, but some people want to make it to the next level. What do they want to do? Well, try some experiment. Try something to help move the market in a different direction, right? Because what Rick does, might not work for everybody. There might be an ideal out there that's not even been thought of that will move the market to the next
or
level.
even just keep you interested, right? I mean, just be curious, right?
Sure.
And create something new for yourself that you want to, I want to try this weird looking hive or whatever.
Right. Yeah, I've got all kinds of interesting ideas I want to try out, so I haven't got there yet. Anyway, James Wilkes is awesome. People are lying about sourwood in the same class. Yeah,
I agree.
Yeah.
Just honey in general, it's one of the most adulterated foods out there.
Sure
if you haven't seen the Netflix documentary Rotten, that's their first episode is about honey.
Yeah.
It's actually at the commodity kind of global scale level, but it happens there all the way down to this local level. Right. And there's various reasons why and different ways people are doing that.
But the maple syrup industry it's so hardcore versus the honey. It's like there's nobody really watching it. Yeah. I mean, like North Carolina, right? If you're a sourwood seller, right, you're technically supposed to get okayed with the state. Is that not correct? To sell sourwood? No.
That's what I was going to ask you.
Okay.
So
What's that?
According to what is this, ncbeekeepers.org. They claim that if you're selling, where is it? Let me find it.
There's kind of a policy that you can challenge somebody's what they're selling is kind of my understanding.
Okay.
Like if you see a product, like we could go down here to the store and take that off and say, hey, we don't believe this is sourwood. And then there's some protocol or process to follow.
Right. And that's not something I want to do.
But I don't want to be the honey police.
No, we none do.
But nobody is. So.
Right. But there's got to be some kind of standard set. Go ahead, Spikey.
If you're selling at a farmer's market operated by the North Carolina Department of Agriculture and Consumer Services, supposedly ever since June 1st of 2012, you're supposed to have a permit to sell honey labeled as sourwood or North Carolina honey. At those
and there's like a handful of those actual state-sponsored markets, and it's actually aimed specifically at the Asheville State Market because that's where the biggest problem was.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh.
I went there one time going, oh, this is so great. I'm going to see all these different honeys.
And
it was from the same distributor. All the sellers were selling the same distributor's honey.
Oh, my gosh.
This isn't right.
That ain't what you want,
That wasn't what I was after.
No. It's like you're looking at I got flea market kind of thing that
just
there's
reselling.
Several different vendors there selling.
That's the only thing I've seen in terms of the labeling, other than if you put something on there, supposedly you're supposed to get it tested.
Yeah.
If you put something specific on there, but I mean, I don't know who's going around testing that at all the local flea markets and stuff.
Yeah, that's right, Steve. That's right. Well, see, that's something else. When they test the honey, they're testing the pollen content. Is that not correct?
Well, again, do you want to go down this rabbit hole?
Well,
we could go a long ways. But
we can go a little ways with it. How's that?
So I've looked very carefully at a lot of this.
Okay.
So there's multiple ways that lab tests can be used. Okay. One is kind of a pollen analysis where they take the pollen out of the honey to identify the nectar sources, the flowers that were visited.
Right.
Because in collecting the nectar, some grains of pollen get on the bees and it gets into the honey itself.
Right.
So there's some analysis you can do kind of following the pollen route. Others is just taking like DNA analysis of the honey, which is a much broader, it's picking up a lot of more than just the pollen.
Okay.
And then there's things like NMR technology that's testing kind of a profile of markers for this honey, but they have to compare it to a legit version of it. So where do you get the legitimate? You have to build up a library actually of like these are the real profiles, and then is this matching up? And so there's multiple kinds of lab tests that are going to tell you different things about the honey. And I remember from the sourwood honey in North Carolina, the producers, this was several years back, wanted to kind of legitimize North Carolina sourwood honey. They sent it off to a German lab. It doesn't meet the definition of honey by the German lab standards because it didn't have enough pollen. Because sourwood doesn't have much pollen in it.
That's right.
And so it didn't even meet that lab standards as a definition of honey. But it was honey because it came from, anyway.
Wow.
So there's, if you have a lab test, it's not the truth because but it's part.
Right.
It tells you something, and using it for what it's good for is what I want people to, to understand.
Sure. Yeah.
And that's also, then flavor also is a big, that's why I want kind of flavor profiles and things. This thing with American Honey Tasting Society, I'd love them to profile. These are the flavor characteristics of sourwood. Give me a sheet, and if this has it, then let's call it that.
Right.
If it has that flavor profile, and it was made in a place that should make sourwood.
Right. So does it go? I mean, would you feel like a honey taster could get closer to knowing whether it was sourwood?
Marina says so. She says she can identify botanical sources from flavor profile. It's consistent enough, from that particular nectar source the flavor profile. Yeah.
Wow, that's pretty cool.
And I took that class, and it's really cool.
Yeah, I would like to take that class.
I took the short version, but you begin to right.
It's like wine tasting. It's kind of
you get all these words. You get a vocabulary to use for the honey. Okay. It's a lot of fun.
That is fun. Yeah.
But I want the whole thing to be part of the kind of evidence for what it is, right? And for everybody to know that it's not one thing is going to define it, but it's kind of a lot of these things, and the more of evidence that we can collect, that's really my objective with a digital platform. Yeah, you can collect all that in the digital platform. I can collect the data behind where my honey was made when it was like the sourwood, and I've got a scale that's saying how much was made there. Right. Right. So I can bracket when it was made, where it was made, how much was made,
what time of month,
and by definition, then that's going to be sourwood,
right? Because you're not getting this in the spring,
and then
it's got a sourwood flavor to it, and that's locust honey, but because when you got the honey, right, and the scale hit there.
So again, creating a framework for collecting all that different layers of data that validate that this is legit honey, and then we can really what it does is just differentiate between different honeys, like. Your honey's going to be even us located, 7 miles apart. Yeah, we're going to have a little different honey profile.
Oh, it's going to be different,
which is fine. Yeah, and it should be that way.
Because my honey's better. Nah, I tell you, I always thought my honey was really good, and I started tasting other people's honey, in their locations, like my honey's good, but it's not quite that good. But it all depends on when you get it. It all depends on when you get it, right? Whether it's the locust that's blooming, then it's really good, versus just regular spring honey, So I tell you what, some of the best honey I think I've ever had was in Mexico. And I don't know what the bees were on, but that was some really good honey. And it had the comb in it. When I had comb in it, it had bees in it. It had bee parts in it. And, everybody's, like, you going to eat that? Yeah, I'm going to try that. I know that's real honey right there. And, but it was good. I mean, it was some of the best honey I've ever had. Must be the bee parts.
We were at a conference in Hawaii, and they had like a lot of, they have so many different flowers.
Oh, sure, yeah.
There were like 50 different flavor profiles of honey.
Yeah.
It's just amazing.
And that's
just points to the kind of the beauty of what the bees are doing, and let's appreciate all the different, even the ones that taste bad.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, but as well as I know, a typical beekeeper will know what the flavors, a lot of times know what the flavors is, right? But the market out there don't really know what honey is. That's why when they say, well, I bought honey from Walmart and it didn't really taste that good, but I buy it off you and it's great, but they don't, they're not really flavor tasting because part of that Walmart honey's been diluted down with something else, right? So,
I don't want to throw all the Walmart honey under the bus, but there are commercial beekeepers that make, lots of honey, and they sell it to big box stores. They actually sell it to the packers. Yeah, the packers are the ones that we should watch.
All right.
So they make. The commercial guy, they're making real honey. They're making good honey.
Yeah, they're making good honey. It's just what happens after that we don't know about. So.
Exactly.
All right. Well, anybody got any questions for James tonight before we open it up to everybody else to come in for a live stream, live chat, or anything? Anybody got any questions tonight?
So your app is free, huh?
Yes.
Does it have a hive limit on it or a time limit or anything like that?
Nope.
Okay.
That's not. So you should ask, well, how are you going to make money? Then the web application that we're coming out, the paywall is going to be there, and it's going to have enhanced, like a web-based tool, so you could access it on your phone or on your laptop or whatever. It's going to have maps. It's also going to have what I think is the really coolest feature. Let's say you are mentoring somebody as a beekeeper. You can have them use the app, and their data show up in your web app, so that you can kind of look over their shoulder and coach them. So if you're in any of that kind of situation, if you have the paid version, it would certainly enhance your service as a mentor, or it also works for bee clubs and organizations, that sort of thing. So the web app again has some features that are worth paying for, including this honey story concept that's going to be in the web app as well.
Yeah,
but it's gonna. I mean, it's not going to be. It's like $60 or something a year. If you use it the way it's designed, it'll pay for itself in $60 or something. Marketing or other things like that. If you use it the way it's designed, it'll pay for itself.
Yeah, I noticed that you got different. I'm looking at a picture on my phone. That's why looks like you got different views on it, like activity, hive history, and looks like you can switch between different hives.
Yep. You have apiaries, you have bee yards, and then you have your hives within the yards. We have different icons for different. You can have laying straws, you can have nukes. I even have a horizontal hive.
Oh wow! Okay, awesome
for you. And then I think I even put a flow hive ation in there as well. Yeah, and I mean it'll have like the source of your bees for the hive. Queens. The race of your queen. If she's if you got the color on her or not, or when you got her, things like that. So it's got a lot of the context, right, for your beekeeping to keep up with.
You thought about putting in a category where somebody could put in, say, weather, temperature, that kind of
stuff? The weather's in there. We're pulling the weather in automatically. Yeah, it's coming through a weather API for your location.
Well, what if you don't show up? That's how far out you are.
If you don't show up where?
Like if it doesn't know where you're at, your phone.
Oh, if you're
not connected, yeah, it'll work offline. So of course, setting up that sort of thing needs to be done connected. But once you're set up, you can go offline. You can still enter. It'll function standalone without any internet connection. Then when you get back, it syncs up with the server.
Because I know a lot of people are interested in taking like humidity and temperature measurements, whether that be for a separate little sensor they've got it connects to their phone, to just the cheap little screens that have the sensor in the back of them. So it'd be nice if somebody wanted, they can manually enter that information in.
Yeah.
And then
or like I said,
build up in your app.
Yeah. Or if you take a screenshot, like if you have like an app that has the temp sensor or whatever, or like the scale I did, I just take a screenshot of that, and then the app allows you to enter pictures, right, as part of the.
But can you take the information off the picture? Like if I have temperatures for the whole year, can I manually put those in and have it generate a graph of like the temperature and humidity?
Yeah, we wouldn't render the graphs or anything in there, but you can enter the data itself.
That might be something you might want to work on for your paid version then.
Yeah. On the paid version, kind of reporting, right, on the history of the hive or that sort of thing. We've got lots of good ideas. I mean, if you think about your hive, through a season, right, it's kind of following the same pattern. Everybody's hives in the same area. You've got your first inspection in the spring, you've got your build up, you got your kind of swarm getting ready for nectar flow, then nectar flow, and then dearth or summer or whatever, then treating, fall, winterizing. That's a kind of normal pattern that everybody follows, right? And so you can see that, visualize that in the report side on the web app. We've done some designs and things on that. It's really cool. It's essentially a timeline for your hive, right? So you can see the history. It grows and shrinks over the season. You harvest the honey, all the kind of metrics around your hive. Actually, does anybody do Spotify? Have you seen Spotify Wrapped? Right at the end of the season, it tells you how many songs these are the artists that you looked at. This is how much time you spent. So kind of rolling up all those stats at the end of the year, you could see this is how many hives you had. This is how many visits you had. This is how much honey you made. This is how often you visited them. All sorts of data that you can slice and dice and analyze in different ways.
I'm not a computer guy, but I love the data. If someone would just do the data for me, I'm all over it.
Yeah,
but for me to actually do it myself, I've got to say I'm a little on the lazy side when it comes to that. And a little lazy in my bees, but something like this to kind of keep some information on what's going on. Would be handy. Because I've got 7 or 8 bee yards and mentoring people also, so this would really help out with a lot of that.
Being able to look at what's happening in other places, that you've been to before you go, is, know what I need to take to that yard, because we always forget what we need.
Was that hive hot? Do I need the smoker or that hive, right? Yeah. So what's going on, Tom? How you doing tonight?
I'm doing good. How's James and Ricky and Spanky doing?
Doing all right.
Doing well. Rick's about to burn me out with his wood stove over here.
It is kind of hot. I'm about to open the window up behind us.
I mixed your shirt in. I got an unbelievable story to tell.
Yeah, tell us what you was talking about earlier, Tom. Go ahead.
All right. It's last Friday, we had a big storm come through. It was 60 degrees and went down to about teens overnight and Hive 20, and it's been 0, negative, and below 20 all week. Well, today it got up to 30 degrees, so I went out to my hives to run my FLIR1 with my phone. Everything looked good. I get up to my resource hives, and they're all laying on the ground, spilled out all over the place.
What? What's
going on? The wind from the week before blew them off the stand.
That's me. I had lids blown off.
Did you really?
Yeah.
Well, I thought they were dead bees.
Uh-huh.
Well, they weren't. All three hives on the stand were still alive. So I put them all back together. All the boxes stood all back up, and put the sugar bricks and stuff, fondant back on top of them, and here they are. So that taught me one thing, that cold weather does not kill bees.
And bees are resilient. That's the other thing.
They are very resilient.
I've heard it snow, like a lid blow off and it snow in. And
if you lose bees in the wintertime, you either lose them because condensations, cold water's dripping on them, or you had starvation, or you had last year a disease issue from either mites,
that's right,
beetles, or moths.
Yeah.
Not cold air.
No.
Because we had a couple of nights down at 0 degrees, below 0, and these bees did not die.
They did some research on that, and they had some hives with just netting around them, and the cold kind of brought them down as the cold temperatures, and they had a hive right next to it that had a box, and I think it was more the wind that was blowing that was causing the bees to fall off and die. But they're very resilient, and that open air colony, just like Tim and Hannah had, did very good. I think Tim and Hannah's hive actually got blown down. They had an open air colony.
Yeah, I had to pry the boxes off the ground because they were frozen to the ground.
Mm-hmm.
But they're only 2 inches, 3 inches from the ground, all just laying there.
Right.
Unbelievable. I thought for sure they were dead hives.
Right. That's amazing, though. That shows their resilience for sure. Absolutely.
Yeah. No doubt. If they're healthy hives, they can live through anything.
Yep. Well, Tom, I think I got Tom Sussman in here with Melissa. How you doing tonight, guys?
You muted.
You're muted.
You're muted on your thing there, Tom.
Say that again one more time. I'm getting a lot of
there you go.
Inside.
You got it.
Tom and Melissa, how you doing?
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yeah.
How's it going, Tom?
Going good. It's been a couple of weeks.
Yeah, I know. It's been everyone taking a minute to settle down.
No doubt.
So what's been going on in your area, Tom, out there in Missouri?
Where it's like you guys are repeating yourself over and over again. It's really weird.
Do you have YouTube running?
You'll have to turn off your the regular YouTube probably.
Turn the sound off at least.
Maybe that's what it is.
Give it to here in 1 second.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
That sounds
Yeah.
better.
There
Okay.
we go.
Is everything sounding okay now?
Yeah, you got it.
You're
Yeah, a
good.
lot better.
It's amateur hour on my end, so forgive me.
It's all right. We all have to learn sometime, right?
We're all rookies once in our life.
That's right. Well, I guess we all don't start off as professionals, right?
All right.
Anything worth doing is worth doing poorly.
Hey.
Well said.
That's a Joel Salatin quote for you. I live by.
That sounds like someone that spoke from experience there.
Just try stuff.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
James posted if it was wet, it was snowing a lot during those days, so they had snow on them and everything. But there was no snow on the bees, but I know it snowed on the bees.
Right. How many hives did you have that to happen to, Tom?
Luckily, I only had 3 hives on that stand.
Okay, that's not too bad then.
No. So, and then my resource hives too, some extra hives.
Following and learning. Yep.
Yeah, right on, Lee.
Yep. 100% Lee, man.
I had a hive on a hive scale one time, and I went and looked at the data, and it went to 0. You know, from whatever the weight was, and it had blown over.
Yeah.
Likewise, I had another hive that was stolen. This was on campus
Stolen
at the university.
Oh my gosh.
And it was in like a little garden, and they didn't know that there was a scale under it. And this scale takes a reading every 15 minutes. And so I had the 15-minute interval during which the hive was stolen.
Wow.
That was a fun police report.
I'm sure. Was there cameras on it too? Or was
No, it didn't have any cameras.
Oh man.
I never found it. I figured it's some college kid, you know.
Well, maybe they needed the bees more.
Maybe they're beekeepers now.
I don't know.
Yeah. What scales are you using? Brian wants to know.
Most of those are broodminder. Yeah, I've tried multiple different ones, but
So which one do you like the best? Or am I putting you on the spot?
no, broodminders.
It's pretty good.
They all have issues.
Okay, all right, that's good to know.
But and I can tell you what those are if you want to know.
Yeah, when I get mine, you tell me what they are. So.
No, but broodminder's been sort of the most reliable over the years. They're not cheap, but they're accurate and reliable. Give good data.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. Hey, Tom and Melissa, why don't you tell us a little bit about y'all's backstory? Because I think this is the first time I've ever known you to be on a live stream.
Yeah, sure. So I'll start off, and I'll let Melissa interrupt me a couple times along the way because she's a lot much better than I will. You know, we all anybody who's married understands how that works, gracious. Right?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
So this would have started back, I guess, 7 years ago. Well, first of all, let me start by saying I own a landscaping company here in St. Louis. So during the season of plants, which is, you know, kind of what I do here, as well as bees, everything would hit at the exact same time. So Melissa, my wife here, had, I guess about 7 years ago, had started watching a couple of YouTube videos. We don't generally watch a lot of TV. We stay pretty busy. So every once in a while we'll watch some educational stuff. And she had found, I believe it might've been a Bob Benny. Is that right?
There was some guy in Texas. He did removals. I don't remember who he was.
Well, there was a couple of YouTube videos that she started watching. Anymore. And so we're laying there in bed, and she says, and I hear her chuckling over there. And I look over and see what she's watching. When my head hits a pillow, I usually fall asleep. She's watching a video about bees, and she told me a couple of interesting, you know, facts about bees. And I'm like, well, that's really interesting, you know, and I roll over and go to sleep. Well, I'll speed this story along where it goes. This happened probably multiple times over several weeks. And she kind of became really, I don't want to say infatuated, but she really enjoyed watching the videos, to say the least. And So she said,
I could have told this story already.
At one, I have to add all the details in though. The details are important, right?
Yeah.
She said we should get bees, and I'm like, yeah, right. And again, if you'd have asked me 10 years ago if I'd have bees now, I would have said 100% no. It just was not even on my radar, not in my wheelhouse, anything. Well, whenever your wife makes a comment about something, it like plants that seed, right? So
Right.
what happens. And well, that seed grew, and she would watch some videos, and I would find myself kind of gravitating to her side of the bed, watching some of these videos. And then I would say, hey, did you hear what he said about a certain fact about honeybees, right? Well, that just progressed on. And next thing you know, I don't know, probably several weeks or maybe even months went by. And we would kind of watch these together. And then we both kind of somehow decided that, hey, maybe we should get some bees, right?
No, we said maybe we should take some classes.
And that's what see, she tells the story better than I do, So we did. We took some classes and kind of helped to educate ourselves a little bit and see if this was something we really wanted to do. And so we said, okay, we want to go ahead and do this. And we said, well, let's just do 3 hives. And well, that didn't work out very well. I hear that keeping bees is somewhat like chicken math. I've never had chickens, but I can tell you that we went from 3 to we had 117 this year, and I still keep my company, my landscaping company going. Of course, that's where we earn a living from, and so I cannot abandon that. But we've really poured ourselves into beekeeping, and I'll tell you, probably one of the best things about beekeeping is not just the bees; it's about the community around the bees, and that's what counts. Melissa and I both have made so many friends around the United States, mainly probably toward the East Coast, but so many friends like yourself, Ricky, and your wife, and even met Tom here more recently, and it's just been an absolute blessing for us, to be really honest. We've poured ourselves into our own local club here in St. Louis called the Eastern Missouri Beekeepers Association, and really have been working pretty hard on our upcoming February 10th workshop that we have going on. So that's kind of just a basic backstory of where we're at. But, we found bees and made a whole bunch of friends with it too. So it's been great.
And you're right, Tom. That's what it is. It's the bee community, the people that you meet. Like I would have probably never met. We probably wouldn't. I don't know if me and James would have probably ever met, to be honest with you. And he just lives right down the street from me. That's crazy.
Yeah.
Or even meeting you and Melissa and coming up with some crazy hives that we've put together. So the
single group management, Charlie.
Hey, sorry to interrupt.
Yeah, come on in, Charlie. How you doing, brother?
Oh, pretty good. Not too bad. I'm just a year older today. That doesn't make.
Is it your birthday?
Yeah, it's my birthday today. So.
Oh man! So you come on here and your birthday. Now that means a lot to me, Charlie. I appreciate it.
I just wish I was 30 years younger. That's all.
Don't we all?
Well, happy birthday.
I don't know. I've lived a lot of life these past 30 years. I'm not sure I could do it again.
I don't know if I want to go back 30 years, Charlie. I wouldn't be a beekeeper then.
I wouldn't have been either. But hey, thank you, Jennifer and Brian and everybody on the chat there. Yeah, I was in one of my other clubs that I'm co-founder of. We had a meeting I had to go to, so I'm late. So we were talking about Hive Tracks.
Yeah, we got to talk about Hive Tracks. Yeah,
and I've researched. I don't know your name, but I know you're around Boone, North Carolina.
Yep. I'm actually closer
and
to
I
Rick.
told a little story.
Boone's the bigger town.
Tom and Melissa talked.
So, James, you may not know this, but Charlie's got some family right up at the state line. Used to have some family that lived up there in the old house that's just you come across the hill there on the left side. I mean,
Oh yeah.
Charlie got to talk. I was like, dang, we may be family because you know how the hillbillies are. Our lines don't quite fork out; they're kind of streamlined.
Yeah,
So, we're probably family down the road and don't even know it. So,
well, it depends on whether you're another moonshiner.
I've had some of those in my family, that's for sure. So,
yeah, there's some there, that's for sure. There was anyway at one time.
There's a lot actually at one time. My great grandfather that had the bees, when he died, we got underneath his house into his root cellar, and I've never seen so many alcohol jugs. And they always said he had a steal somewheres, and he must have. But I mean, he had lots of jugs of alcohol everywhere. So.
Yeah. But anyway, so everybody did. Tom, did you all go out to Nobby too? Out to
Yeah, my wife and Melissa and I, we both were out there. We've had the pleasure of being able to be a part of that since the second year, which obviously it wasn't Nobby then.
Where I've been at the last three. Yep.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
Melissa, my wife here, we were trying to go the first year, and for whatever reason, I can't remember now, it just didn't work out.
COVID, that was the reason I didn't go.
Well, I think the possibility exists that we may have had some snow weather here in St. Louis, Missouri. And as part of my landscaping business, I'm a snow contractor, so I'm a pretty small company and only keep a couple trucks. So that if we get a big event, it's hard for me to get away then. So every year that this pops up, I usually pray pretty hard and pray that the snow either misses or it just a light touch where I can have an employee handle the tasks while I'm gone. So we really look forward to going every year.
Yeah.
I was actually sick.
enjoy it.
I was actually sick the week before Nobby, and Tom's like, "You better get better, or I'm leaving you behind."
Oh gosh.
Yeah, it's like I was sick, I think a week or two before, with a sore throat and whatever. And I said, I don't care what it is, I'm going.
Yeah.
A lot of honey and pollen.
But it was fun this year. And it got to meet a lot of my subscribers, a huge amount more. I learned that I'm touching more people than I ever thought I was in my YouTube channel and in my live stream that I have on Friday nights, from the East Coast to the West Coast to Canada. And I met several Canadians from Quebec and let's see what else. Quebec and another one of the provinces up there and stuff. And but and then I got to meet a lot of I'll say mid-level, I'll say commercial or wanting to be commercial beekeepers, or actually they are commercial beekeepers and stuff. So it was quite an eye-opening that people are watching me, and I'm like, I only got 30 hives, you got 500. Why are you watching me? What's so interesting about me, other than maybe I'm teaching a technique or something they're interested in or something. But it was pretty neat.
Yeah, we all do beekeeping slightly different.
Yeah.
A lot different some places of the country.
I was always giving him a hard time.
Your audience. He's just jealous he didn't go to Nobby.
Yeah, that's right. So, hey, y'all need to talk James in over here. I think James has had a YouTube channel for 18 years.
Oh, I wouldn't call it. It was before there were such things as YouTube channels.
I keep telling James
I was posting all sorts of stuff before.
Yeah, he needs to post more beekeeping.
I had a
videos.
phone that could take good videos. I think my very first video was a swarm catching video, and it was like 2008.
Yeah.
Wow.
Back in the early days of YouTube. So
yeah, we need James to put some more videos out there and become more of a YouTuber, I think.
I've got a lot of swarm catching videos.
Yeah.
I have a really cool video of I was tilling the garden and my hives are right next to it, and I saw a swarm happening.
Started blowing up, yeah.
And I just went and sat next to it with my phone, and I caught the whole issuance and then landing. It landed in a little like a pine tree just up the hill from it. But I was able to capture the whole was 16 minutes end to end.
Yeah.
And it was the issuing out, and then the little cloud going, and then coming back. It was awesome.
I tell you what, a swarm coming out of your hive, it's got to be the most amazingest thing you've ever seen in your life. I mean, anybody gets to see that, it's just killer. I love that. So
I caught one a couple years ago flying in. I was standing by my barn, and I said, "Where's the heck all these bees coming from?"
Right.
And they were heading to one of my hives.
Wow.
They landed about 10 feet in a little tree in front of it, and all banded there. And then they went right into the empty hive.
Wow. Now that's really cool. That would be something else I'd like to see them actually going into the area that they were headed. So that'd be really cool.
Yeah. I just heard the noise, and I looked up, and I go, man, I'm pretty sure I knew where the hive swarm came from, too. Because my friend had some hives about a half mile away.
Right.
Directly where they came from. So I said, Paul, thank you for your bees.
That's right. Appreciate them. You know.
Hey, I'm just curious on any swarms that anybody here in the chat has caught. How many of them would you say have been in an evergreen style tree? I only ask that because I've had that happen several times. Now, here in eastern Missouri, we have a lot of cedars, but I've noticed before that anytime that we have either caught a swarm, and this is not every time, but often, and I've even had seen my bees trying to leave the boxes a couple of times when I wasn't doing my swarm management well enough, obviously. But it seems like often they gravitate toward an evergreen. I don't know if there's more foliage there for them to grab onto, or if it's just a fluke from my end. Just curious what you guys have seen before in the past.
Yeah, that's pretty consistent. And also, I mean, there's at least around here like a peach tree. If you plant a peach tree kind of near your apiary, it's a good sort of bee magnet.
I was going to say a magnolia tree.
Yeah.
I've caught a couple in magnolia trees too.
Yeah. I've
got a red cedar that's out here, and I catch all my swarms there.
Oaks, magnolias, jenifers, bushes.
You'll find if you've got kind of a stationary apiary, then and you get swarms, then they have their favorite trees, or at least they definitely do at my house. The last 15 years, there's a big maple in my front yard that, I mean, I've cut so many limbs out of it.
It's almost streamlined.
Unfortunately, they go too high in it. But,
you better plant another maple next to it, because it sounds like at some point in time that tree may be cut down.
You say that, Tom, but I really do believe if you would put a line of small saplings in front of your hives, it's a windbreak, right? But when those bees come out, there's more than likely that queen's going to land in there and be really low to the ground, right? So maybe
one could hope.
I've had them go all over.
I've noticed over the years that the bees will go to about the same tree year after year, or not that tree, the tree right next to it.
Yeah.
Almost the same branch.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That they go to.
So you're the professor.
Why is it? I think that they might leave us that on the tree.
The bee said that's a good spot.
What do you think, Charlie?
What's that?
Why do the bees go to a certain limb or tree or whatever? What's up with that?
Most of the time, I think that the pheromones are still there.
Yeah.
Over a period of time, and they attract to that. A lot of times, I was watching the chat here. A couple of things. Nancy wanted something about for the Hive Tracks app. What did you need, Nancy? And then another thing was Brian from Flower Street wanted for via honeybees. Tom there about your honeybee business. He wanted you to comment on that. I don't know.
Well, we're just Melissa, my wife, and I.
We're full-time hobbyists.
That's correct. We're hobbyists. I don't do this for a living, but I can tell you, I think you came in a little bit later. on the chat there, Charlie, from when
No,
I was
I did.
on just a brief story, but we just do this as hobbyist beekeepers. The most hives I've kept this year was around 117, and I settled in right before winter at a solid 98. Took some early losses, made some combines, got rid of some queens that were not being productive for me, and tried to get down to a good core. But we'll probably end up having a few more here this year. We're going to make a lot more nukes. We do sell nucleus colonies. We sell honey. My wife Melissa makes a lot of products out of the hive. But again,
doesn't sound like a hobbyist to me. You sound like a sideliner. You got 100 hives.
I'll tell you, sometimes people are all about the labels when it comes to thing and want to categorize you. And I guess that may be human nature. But we just do what we do because we love it. And it works, Well,
I mean, as far as like they talk about a sideliner, a lot of times they'll gauge it as, oh, you have 50 hives or more, you're a sideliner. Well, I always gauge it as, do you make money? Do you actually have a profit, a clear profit? And if you do, and it's a sizable profit, then I consider that a sideliner.
Yeah.
And I do the same thing. I sell honey, I sell nukes. I try to sell queens when I have extras and stuff like that. A little bit of beeswax on the side.
Same.
Yeah.
Well, we like to do a lot of experimenting too with different things. Like the one hive that Ricky made us last year has the inner covers has holes. They're not drilled in it, but holes sawed in it, so we can put mason jars in it and have the bees draw honeycomb in the mason jars. That worked out fabulously. Like those flew off the shelves.
You can sell that right.
So we do that. We did a little bit of pollen trapping last year. We're gonna do some grafting with some of Corey Stevens' queens this year. We've been getting his queens for the last few years. We love his queens. So we're gonna do some grafting with those this year. We like to do like little experiments with certain.
Well, that's what I'm also a president of my local club, and that's what I always tell the new beekeepers is that beekeeping is a science experiment that never quits.
That's
Mm-hmm.
right.
Continuously doing science experiments in order to learn how to manipulate your bees to get them to do what you want to do. As like in your the quart jars, now you got them to put the comb honey in the jars for you, and then all you have to do is pour it full of liquid honey, and voila, you got chunked honey to sell.
So we have like 6 different bee yards that we have all of our bees spread out in. And the ones that we experiment with are the ones that we keep at our home apiary. Then we have 2 that are close together that are our queen and our nucleus colony yards. And then our other 2 are more like honey production yards, so to speak. So
yeah, sounds like a sideliner to me. You got designated hives for certain projects and whatever, and yards and everything else. So
we tend to spend our profits back into the operation, though. So
well, when you're starting out, maybe you need more stainless to buy stainless, and whatever in order to that. And it's all about, for me, it's all about how can I make it easier for me? How can I be more efficient as far as, let's say, buying an uncapping, like say one of those licensed uncapping machines, like at Nobby, or a 30 frame extractor versus a 18 frame or something of that nature.
That was actually one of our big purchases this year. Was we bought a licensed automatic uncapper. We kind of toyed around with it for the last year.
So you bought that $6,668 machine.
We got the 2023 price though.
Right, it was a little less than that. So,
but it's the fully automatic job.
Yeah,
that's correct. It's not a full line. It's a part of a full line. It's not there. I don't have that much money to burn through what I've got. So we
but it's an investment.
That's
but
right.
You bought the one that was was on display, the middle one.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, we had called. We dealt with Dogwood Ridge bees, Dwayne there, and he was an absolute blessing to deal with. I enjoyed every minute of the experience with him, and we had kind of talked about it. I started talking to him about it in October, and didn't really make up my mind fully until probably I guess it was closer to December. And I said, okay. He said, I have one left. I said, put my name on it. He said, well, it has to be at the show for display. And I said, that's perfectly fine. So we were able to roll it home. So we actually we brought a bunch of people from our club in Eastern Missouri. So Melissa and I are part of the Eastern Missouri Beekeepers Association. And it's a pretty nice, sizable club. And they're all about community and education. We just started with them here and just became board members. Melissa's the vice president. I'm the program chairperson. And so we have a lot of great people in St. Louis and at the EMBA on the board, and people that just come to the club. We were able to get a bunch of them to come down with us to Nabi here this year. And I was able to get one of our friends, Ken Heitkamp, to haul back the horizontal hive that I purchased from Ricky and his wife, Ruth. So we had our truck completely full, crated up and everything. And then we had to get some more room from somebody else, and it worked out pretty well. So we were able to take home some really nice items from the trade show and able to save a little bit of money, so that it worked out well.
That's great.
Hey, Tom, I'm in Southern Illinois, just straight, about halfway between you two Toms. It's on the screen up here.
Yeah.
And I do a lot of business with Dwayne down at Dogwood Ridge. They're fine folks.
Yeah, I agree with you. He's a good guy for sure. I told him we'd be talking to him soon, and we'll probably add more items to that license lineup as we see fit and as we need to. So looking forward to dealing with him in the future.
I had bees flying here today. It got up to 36 there, and the wind laid a little bit, and the bees were out and flying around the snow got a little dab of snow on the ground here. So that was interesting. I thought that temperature.
Well, we're supposed to get about 5 more inches here tonight. Snow.
Yeah, they claim
We're supposed to get a few.
I hope we're done for the year, don't you, Tom?
I'm ready. I'm finished. But I got to work bees today, so I got my little my early start this year.
Yeah. I popped my tops and put on a little more fondant this afternoon.
Yeah, next week we're supposed to get up to in the mid 50s, so I plan to put some pollen patties on all my hives. Start getting them ready for spring, since the queens should be start laying pretty soon in my area, if not already.
Like I said, I texted you earlier, but I'm straight west of you. I'm just about halfway between you and Tom Sauceman there in St. Louis.
Right. I know my first blooms are usually my silver maple trees the first week of March, and typically the queen starts about 6 weeks before first blooms. So that puts me right in the middle of January, which is where we are. So they should be about ready to start laying a little bit.
As a matter of fact, Tom Sauceman, I'm coming out to that Eastern Missouri.
Oh, you are?
Thing, yeah, the 9th and 10th, yes.
Well, that's great. Be sure that whenever you get there to seek me out. There's going to be quite a few people there. We're still expecting 200 attendees, and we're not that far off from it. So I'm pretty confident we're going to hit that mark. So be sure to seek me out. I'm going to be on there's going to be 2 sides or 2 classes running. We're all going to start off together. And then the newbies or the beginners are going to split off into one classroom, and the intermediate level will be in the other one. And I'll be the moderator for the intermediate side. So you won't be able to miss me.
Oh, I look forward to meeting you.
Yes, sir. You too.
So, Tom, do you have a YouTube channel?
We actually don't. Well, I guess we have a
channel.
We have a channel.
Have any videos?
We don't really post to it. We've talked about it, going back and forth, and Ricky up there has been saying, "Hey, you all need to start making some videos." And I say, okay, I don't know. And
it's intimidating. Those videos that puts out are intimidating. They do such a good job.
Yeah,
I
but
tried
y'all
to make
post on Facebook a lot of times, so you might as well go ahead and put it on YouTube.
We do post some stuff to just our Facebook page, Be a Honeybees. You can look us up on there. Melissa usually will do the
You'd
recording.
see a lot of us arguing with each other and talking over each other.
Yeah.
Oh, that would be perfect. You guys have all
Yeah, you guys got it made.
That's right.
It'd be more
That's good
entertainment
content.
purposes than beekeeping.
Makes
Melissa-
it entertaining.
Melissa and I have been married for 26 years, and we love each other to death. But we are both very strong personalities, and we have our own opinions about the way we do things. But we work very, very well together. But we like to give each other a lot of trouble. So that's probably the secret to our success. You know.
Let's put it this way: when we go into a bee yard, he has to start on one side, I start on the other side. Well, sometimes we start working together, and then we're like, "No, you do it this way. No, do it this way." And so we just separate sides, and we end up, meeting in the middle.
You guys are making me homesick. I've had the same one for 58 years, and we're
Well, congratulations. That is quite an accomplishment.
well.
That's a good-looking calf you got there.
Well, that was a bucket calf that I raised a few years ago. That's a picture. I couldn't get my background halfway decent, so I just popped that in there. That looked the best, showed up the best. So this is my first night getting on, actually.
Yeah, I seen where you actually had a Facebook request to me, so I'll go ahead and you don't know who to, you have to scan that pretty close these days. It seems like.
Yeah. You're right.
When I walked out to my yard and saw the beehives on the ground, I tried to get some content, but it didn't come out very good. I guess I hit record, and I guess trying to pick up the boxes and hold it at the same time, I turned it off or something, or the cold weather shut down my phone. Who knows? I got a little bit.
Been there, done
Ricky,
that.
changing the subject, I wanted to tell you I got your hive set up, but I have a problem with it. All that camouflage on it and my bad eyes, I keep falling over it.
That's pretty funny, JW. Does it look good all set up in your bee yard?
I got her set up. Now all I got to do is make a few splits to fill it up with, I suppose.
Yep, that's right.
Yeah.
Well, if Ricky had anything to do with making that hive, you can guarantee that thing looks good. There's no doubt about that.
Appreciate that, Tom.
Nancy's got
that.
Yeah. Nancy's got a question. How close can you keep your hives together for Hive Tracks? Or apart?
Yeah, I'm not sure what she means by that.
Yeah, what I'm not
sure.
Because
is she more so asking?
Right?
Is she more so asking if there's a category to put in the distance, or is she? I'm not sure if she's asking the GPS or what.
I don't know. Nancy, jump on here.
Yeah, Nancy, come on here.
I put all my hives about 6 inches apart, but I've already had them right up against each other just because my bench wasn't big enough. I think the only question is how much drifting you want to put up with. But some genetics drift more than other genetics. So
as far as
I
Hive
don't
Tracks
care
go.
about drifting. So I mean, commercial beekeepers put 4 on a pallet. They're up against each other. So
Yeah, it gets harder to work when they're that, with lids and whatnot.
I do about 5 or 6 inches just so I can put a couple frames or a lid in between the hives, and that's about it.
Yeah, we kind of do the same thing with ours. When I build stands for ours, I will level off a stand that's anywhere between 8 and 10 feet, and I can get 4 to 5 colonies on there. Now, I don't run 10 frame equipment. I run all 8 frame equipment, which by and large, there's not a large difference in that. And you would probably still, for the most part, manage similarly. But we do the same thing. We understand that if I have 4 or 5 stands and each one of them hold, 4 to 5 colonies on there, we can have 20 plus colonies in an area, and we'll go up to usually about 30 in our area. But But we understand that there's going to be drift, and we understand that, you can, there's a little bit of challenges that go along with that, which is fine. We when we are taking care of an entire yard, not all the time, but often we'll treat a yard in its entirety. We'll also do some equalizing within that yard, pay close attention to making sure the health and the quality of the bees is there too. If we have a problem with any of them, we call them. So all of ours are pretty close together as well. So I would say 6 inches to a foot apart.
Yeah, I think if you want to minimize drifting, you got to be at least 3 feet apart because it seems like 3 feet to be the magic number and knowing where their entrance is.
Yeah.
So if you put them
We
3 feet plus, you minimize drifting.
We waxed up all of our boxes, but Melissa has chosen to paint the fronts at the time of wax dipping. So we'll change the colors up on the fronts of our hives. So that can probably help to minimize. It's definitely not going to
eliminate it.
Yeah, it's not going to eliminate it. It'll probably help to minimize it. We'll spread them out a little bit if we're making some smaller mating nukes, or we'll put different symbols in the front of the hive so we can kind of help to reduce that, because obviously we don't want any queens drifting into the wrong box. That probably wouldn't work out well.
Well, mating nukes we tend to do forward, backward also, like,
Yeah,
Right.
along with the
off the
different.
ends.
But the larger stands, the 8-foot, 10-foot stands that we do, and I only keep them a foot to 18 inches off the ground. So not high. So it's very easily to work. If we end up with production hives that have potentially 4 or 5 supers on it, they can get pretty tall pretty quickly. So when we set them up like that, it's just convenience. If I'm going to do it for probably more purpose, I would say 2 hives per stand, but then that means I would have to level off multiple hive stands in a yard, and I don't want to take the time to do it. So
Yeah.
With 8 frame,
My production stand is 40 feet, and I run 24 hives on 40 feet. So
with
they're pretty close.
with 8 frame equipment, are you running deeps for your brood chamber?
that's correct. Yes.
Are you running too deep? I have a neighbor that has 8 frame. We were trying to do single brood chamber, and with 8 extra, only 8 frames, I found that we were running out of room a lot faster.
Yeah, I feel like that with 8 frame equipment, and this is just some perception that I've had, because I have had 10 frame equipment when I first started off. I had bought a little bit of mishmash of a few different things, and then you consolidate and get down to a standardized. That's how you can help to keep your time in check. But I felt like that it's more a little more difficult for them to build brood all the way to the outside edges, whereas I think they do a little better doing that in 8 frame equipment. But I also manage in a double deep setup, so I feel like that's a little bit more forgiving than if I was to do it in a single brood management like you were talking about, Charlie. It allows me a little bit more time in case I can't get back to a bee yard in the early spring when they're brooding very heavy. It allows me a little bit more time and a little more forgiveness. So that is why I generally gravitate toward the double brood box as opposed to single.
So we feed with hive top feeders, like I think they're Man Lake.
That's what I run.
That's how somebody was asking how we feed our hives. So liquid syrup, that's how we feed them.
Yeah.
I got the buckets. I got mostly 2-gallon buckets, some 1-gallon buckets.
I think buckets are probably a little bit cheaper in that regard, but I don't have a lot of experience, so I can't really speak from experience, only from what I've seen or people talk about, so I've never decided to go that method.
Well, we use all telescoping covers too, so we don't use any migratory covers.
I'm about the same, Tom, on the 8 frame stuff. I'm in the process. You can tell by looking at me, I'm no baby, but I'm going from mostly 10s and going down to 8s. And the last couple of years, I've been running my 8 frame stuff with double deeps, and then if they're real strong, I'll leave a medium super on top with honey on them.
Yeah.
So I have better luck that way. It's hard. I've had trouble trying to use the to single brood nest on the 8 frames. I'm like you, I about have to.
I
Keep
run
enough
single
bees
brood
to keep me.
on 6 frame, 8 frame, and 10 frame. And they
So,
all take about the same amount of work.
so with
Maybe 10's a little bit easier.
So with 8 frame, when you got 2 double brood boxes, and then you're putting the queen excluder and honey supers on, are they filling the tops out really good? And I guess you're condensing the hive smaller, but you're forcing it where they
Yeah,
where she's pretty much laying up those 2 boxes full to where you're forcing the workers to put all the honey upstairs.
Pretty
That's
much. Pretty much.
pretty
That's
much
how
in my
I'm
case.
doing it.
So this last year in spring came in pretty hot and heavy here in the St. Louis area where we live, because it just came in, really fast. We had an early nectar flow and whatnot, and we were constantly pulling honey frames out of that top deep and putting empty foundation frames in there. If we had drawn comb, we'd throw that in there. So yeah, they filled it up pretty quick and then filled up those supers pretty fast too this spring.
Yeah, but did they do? I mean, what I found in 10 frame is they'll fill up the bottom with brood. They'll chimney up the 6 center frames, and the outer frames on the top box will be full of honey. And then the 6 frames in the center will cap over, they'll hatch, and then they'll backfill with honey, with nectar, and trying to get them to go up, upstairs to the honey supers where you want them was always a problem for me.
So the one thing that
in
we
10 frame, in 10
Okay.
frame.
The one thing that I've kind of been focused on too is, so my sole focus is not on honey production. I personally, this is my personal view. I view it as it's a lot more work if I'm looking to make money on it. I feel like I can make money on selling bees out of that or selling splits a lot easier, and the money is better. So if I'm looking to kind of help fund my addiction here, right, of the bees, that's
Yeah, I had the same thought process years ago.
So I don't really stick to one. If I was sticking to honey production, I would change the way I manage it a little bit differently. But like Melissa just said, we may pull some frames out and we'll hold those frames back. We may freeze them and then store them, and I'll use those for either making splits and or plugging in later in the year. I don't ever really harvest that. I'll always allow that, keep that back for the bees. But I'm also about drawing out new comb. So I really took a hold of what Bob Benny has, that talk about comb and it being the liver of the colony. And that's where a lot of your pesticides can be stored in, is the comb itself. So I will try to regularly cycle out my comb, whether it's, and again, if I'm cycling it out in a nuke, it's not bad comb. It's just not brand new comb. It's still very usable and it still has plenty of life left. Or I'll use that. I may sell off some combs that if they draw them in a way that I don't like, because I'm very OCD about when I look at a frame, if it's not drawn out very nice and pretty, for whatever reason, it bothers me. So I either move it to the outside, let them store honey in it for their own keeping, or I'll actually just cull the frame entirely. So I may get rid of frames that way. So I don't mind building some extra frames throughout the year. So, we've kind of diversified in the ways that we've kind of manage it. Again, I don't have to worry about straight honey production, and I don't really, it's great. And we do harvest a lot, but it's not our sole interest.
Right. No, I started out, watching the beekeeper up in Vermont. I can't think of his name right now, Mike Palmer, and I started with nukes, and I looked at nuke sales, and I was running 25 nukes, and I don't know, so many honey hives at the time, and now I'm switching around to where it's about half and half of honey production and nuke production, and trying to get my queen production up and running a little bit better this year, hopefully.
Yeah. So have you been following any of the information like that Corey Stevens puts out with the VSH queens, and, really kind of dialing in some genetics, not just having bees, but having very good quality honeybees so that you can actually have or sustain much less less losses in the wintertime that you otherwise might have. And that's kind of been our focus the last 2 years. And we've been trying to educate ourselves a little better on that so that we can have, and we don't generally experience grave losses either, but, nobody wants to lose bees. But we also need to understand that that's just part of where we're at in this day and age, with the varroa mite and other obstacles that probably play key roles. I think that we probably use a little bit too much pesticides, and I can say that to myself equally, because in my line of landscaping work, we do use herbicides and pesticides. I try to be a little bit more cautious about what I use. Paying attention to those labels and following them directly. And trying to be good stewards of the land. Because at the end of the day, we can't just think about ourselves as beekeepers, but we have to think about everybody entirely. The farmers want to think about themselves. The beekeepers want to think about themselves, but really we're kind of all in this together, So
Right.
just being good stewards of our bees and good stewards of the land.
As far as my queen rearing thing, it's more of my biggest downfall is setting up the cell builder, being more efficient in getting a really quality cell builder set up. As far as grafting goes, Kent Williams taught me how to do that at a honey show back in 2019, and that's not a problem. It's setting up the cell builder and getting it the strength that I want.
Yeah.
And then I can, as far as Corey and all, that's beyond me as far as the genetic, trying to do genetics. That's for somebody like him that's got time to do all that. So,
well, Corey himself is pretty OCD about what he does, and I value that in him. I really do, and I've told him that.
I mean, his situation is that's what he does is queens. Period.
That's right.
He's not really honey. He's not really nukes. It's all about queens, and for what he's doing with his queens, he has to be that way because it's intense.
Yeah, it is very intense.
For what he does. So.
Yeah, but Philip Morse on here says something about Corey's bees being a little hot. I've heard that from other people before. I can't say that I know that specifically myself because I have gotten many of his virgin queens over the last couple of years. I'm not saying that all of them have been, very mild manners, but by and large, I think that I would tolerate a bee that is a little bit less. That might be a little bit more hot, and I'm not saying to the point you can't work them because that's just those I would call. But I'll tolerate a little bit of testiness from time to time if I feel like I've got a much better colony, and that's something that him and I have talked a little bit about. Where he says, that's something that he'll continue to work on, throughout time.
I know that. Let's see, Mark Miller, I believe it is, that he is getting Corey's queens for quite a few years. And then Flower Street Honey, Brian there has gotten stuff from Mark. And he's always had good results with his queens and stuff. They're very
I noticed with Corey's queens that when I first opened the inner cover off, about 10 to 20 of them will fly out just a few inches, maybe a foot or two out to you. If you just step back a second, they fly right back in, and then they're no different than any other hive. Just that first initial opening, they'll come at you. But I never got stung by them. They just would come out to investigate and then fly right back in.
Yeah.
I wouldn't call that hot, just being just a little bit more aggressive at the very beginning.
That's probably my experience too. If I'm thinking about it, that's probably what we kind of experience.
Yeah, I see that with the Russians too a lot of time. I had run some Russian queens. They do very similar. Yeah, I got a whole hodge mix of mite resistant in my yard now. I got Martha Carpenters, I got Russians, and I got some of Corey's. plus mutts.
Do you have some that you prefer over the others?
I really like the Martha Carpenter queens, but you can't even get those anymore.
I like Bob's expression there.
Yeah, that's funny. Being Canadian.
Yeah. Yeah, I just got text from the Canadian. But yeah, it sounds like you got a really nice operation there.
Yep.
And all.
Well, guys, we're going to call it a night. I appreciate everybody coming on and talking. Tom and Melissa, I do appreciate you guys. We should come back. JW, appreciate these new guys getting on the live stream. Everybody in the chat, guys. Again, without you guys, we don't have a live stream. And appreciate the chats and the conversation that we've had in the chat. That's been really good. And Charlie and Tom, of course, you and Spanky. We appreciate you guys always being on here. So anyway, we'll say thanks to everybody, and until next time, we'll see you then.
Sounds good. See you guys.
Good night, all.
See you, James. Appreciate you, brother.
Good night, everybody.